Well, hello and welcome to Coloring All the Things with Sandy. I'm here for Ellen Hudson. I'm Sandy Allnock, and I'm going to be coloring something by popular request. This stamp set came out just recently, you might know, and I colored this card and I put a picture of it on my blog and on my social media, and everybody was like, "How did you do that? How did you mask that? How did you color it?" So I'm going to show you another version of it. Same card, just slightly different with a couple changes because I can't seem to do anything twice the same way. So I started off by laying the stamps on the card surface to figure out where I wanted the two of them, leaving room for the bat's wing that's going to go on the other side of the ghost, and then removing the bat so that it's just the ghost there and getting it lined up. I decided to move it over just slightly and then stamp it. This is in a MISTI, by the way. I've noticed lately there's a bunch of people asking, what is a MISTI? How did you not know? So anyway, you can pick one up in Ellen's shop if you need one, but I'm going to stamp it with some no-line ink. So it's going to be a real soft color. And then I'm going to remove that from the MISTI and put the bat in. And the bat I'm going to line up so that the eyes both stick out on the left side. And I'm not worried about the bat wing on the right side right now. Just going to line it up, close the lid, and then use just a flat sticky note. No trimming, no nothing. Just a flat sticky note along the longest side of that ghost. And then I will stamp it up with some Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink because it's Copic friendly. If you're using something else, you can use whatever ink's going to work, and it cut off part of the face. So then all I have to do is turn this sticky note. Look how easy that is. Sweet, right? As long as your paper hasn't moved and your stamp hasn't moved, you can just re-stamp it. That's the joy of having a MISTI. And sometimes I just take my sticky note and keep moving it around until I uncover all the things that I need to. I moved my paper over so the other bat wing might stick out the right amount. And in order to check it, I put some plastic down just to make sure that I don't get any ink on the paper and see that the bat wing is in the place that I want it. I can remove the plastic and do the same thing with the sticky note. It's a nice flat image, so all I have to do is put the sticky down straight on there, stamp the wing, and it should, cross our fingers, work properly. Now, if you like masking tricks like this, I love masking tricks because I'm lazy. I don't like to do really hard masking. I'm going to be here on Ellen Hudson's channel right here on World Card Making Day. So keep an eye out on Ellen's social media for all the details about time and everything. But I'm going to be here like next weekend. So stay tuned. Put that on your calendar, okay? For the coloring, I'm going to start by laying in the background first, so B99, just so that I have my dark set for what the sky's going to look like. Because coloring something that's black and something that's white, like the bat and the ghost, you need to have some idea what's going to be around them. I didn't want to end up recoloring them afterward because the color of the background changed everything and changed how things relate. So the ghost is hanging down below the bat's wing, and there's going to be seen blue through there. So I used a B91, a very light B9, so that you see a little bit of that sky coming through the transparent ghost. When it comes to the ghost sitting in front of the bat is going to be black behind there, or in this case, we're going to call it a gray. So you can use a C2 or a C3, depending on how comfortable you feel with contrast. This is, I believe, a C3. And put in just some lines in there. We just want a little bit of color to indicate that the ghost is there. And we're going to add more later, but at least this is going to give us a start. And then again, we can take the colorless blender, just go over it so everything gets a little bit on the mushy side, because you don't want really sharp edges necessarily on a ghost, because he's supposed to be kind of fluid, you know what I mean? Then let's start coloring the bat. I'm going to use a C6 to start out with. And yes, I know a bat is supposed to be black, but we need some highlights on him. And a C6 will be kind of the lightest color for the bat. But before I lose the eyes, I'm going to draw them back in with a pen. If you're using a multi-liner, then you can color right over top of it. If you're using something else that's not Copic friendly, then you might want to wait until later to do the eyeballs. You can always move the eyes wherever you want on the bat because you're not going to be able to see the stamp lines. So next I'm going to go for the darkest area in the center of the bat's stomach and put the really dark in there. And this is a C10. And you can even go with a black. I will add a little bit of black at the end. And then I wanted to give a definition to the wings. You know how they have those separations in the wings? So I'm going to put something that looks a little bit like an arch in two sections. Just a little bit at the top, and then step down to a C8 now, and go from the C10 to the C8, and start to build out my blending between the colors. Do the same thing upward on the face. So we still have the light at the top of the head. And then I'll do the same thing out on the other wing, just to start softening those colors. And then go back in with the C6, which remember was the first color that we used. And we're going to blend out a little bit more. I'm going to try to leave a tiny highlight along the curved edge of that wing. That's going to make it really feel like it's curved around in front, like he's holding that wing out. And then just go over the rest of it, start smushing it, doing a couple layers even to blend it, get it softer, because we don't want it to look like super sharp edges, but having it look like it's blended is nice. And then go do the same thing on the other side. And notice that this gray, even though I've been coloring a bunch of layers over it, is still looking like it's a little bit lighter than the B99, which is great. You can add more color into the ghost, because depending on how transparent you want your ghost, you would see more color through it or less color through it. If it's more of a cloudy type of thing, then you want less color. But even if your ghost doesn't come out looking right, if something goes wrong, then die cut out the ghost and just glue it on. It'll still look adorable, and it doesn't matter what you've got colored behind it, because you've got this adorable vellum ghost right on top. I decided to add a little color to the head, so I used a C1, and then I'll use my colorless blender to soften that out just a little tiny bit. But now as I was looking at it, and I fuss with things until I beat them to death, I started noticing that there were some areas that need a little bit of work. I need a little bit more contrast on the bat itself. So I'm going to put a little bit of black on that bottom wing that's hanging out, a little bit inside underneath the chin, and the really darkest dark parts. And then I use the C6 to go over some of the areas again, just to make sure that they're all blended well. Then C2 in the moon for the dots on the moon for all the craters, and take the colorless blender and color over about maybe more than 3/4 of the circle, so that you end up with a halo of dark on the upper right hand side, and then the lower left gets a little soft, and that will make it look like they're craters, so they kind of curve in a little bit. You could do it a different direction, but whatever direction you do, just keep all of those circles handled the same way. And then I wanted to add some sparkle to it, because, you know, they're using some magic to fly all the way up to the moon. So I'm using the colorless blender to make a path for myself. And I'm going to have a couple of swirls of it with some openings in between. So you're going to see some of that dark blue in between the sections and have them crisscross, so it really looks like it's spinning. And that's going to give it that feeling of those lines of magic dust actually twisting. And they're also going to come up over the bat's wings and over the ghost a little bit, just so that it looks like it's swirling around them. It's not swirling behind them. And then the magic of the white pen, which seems to be in all of my cards in this time of year as I'm working on fall cards and Christmas cards and everything with the magic of the season. So I've just got a whole bunch of dots all over the place. Make them trail out to the left and right, so they're not like just strands. You don't want them to look like they're a string of lights necessarily. So once I got the main ones in there, I started adding in things to the outside of them so that they fade out, and there's a few trails that go off in different directions and stuff. So it looks very floaty. And that is it for my card. This one came out different than the previous, which had warm grays for the moon and blue violets in the sky. So you can use all kinds of color combinations in something like this. I hope to see you back here next Saturday for the live cast. So meet me and Ellen here. We're going to be coloring, we're going to be masking, and doing some fun stuff for World Card Making Day. We'll see you then.